Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, do not take the sorrows of life for what they seem to be. They are in truth a way for greater achievements. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo and our Divine Mother, taken from the compilations of the complete works of our Lord and our Divine Mother from the book Living Words, compiled by A.S. Dalal, page 24. Topic: to be thyself. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it has been well said by one who saw but through a veil and mistook the veil for the face, that thy aim is to become thyself. And he said, well, again, that the nature of man is to transcend himself. This is indeed his nature, and that is indeed the divine aim of his self-transcending. That which thou hast to transcend is the self that thou appearest to be, and that is man, as thou knowest him, the apparent Purusha. And what is this man? He is a mental being enslaved to life and matter, and where he is not enslaved to life and matter, he is the slave of his mind. But this is a great and heavy certitude. For to be the slave of mind is to be the slave of the false, the limited, and the apparent. The self, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo, the self that thou hast to become is the self that thou art within, behind the veil of mind and life and matter. It is to be the spiritual, the divine, the superman, the real Purusha. For that which is above the mental being is the superman.
In the bosom of the silence burns the lamp that can never be extinguished, the fire of an ardent aspiration to know thee and totally to live thee.
Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it is to be the master of thy mind, thy life, and thy body. It is to be a king over nature, of whom thou art now the tool, lifted above her, who now has thee under her feet. It is to be free and not a slave, to be one and not divided, to be immortal and not obscured by death, to be full of light and not darkened, to be full of bliss and not the sport of grief and suffering, to be lifted into power and not cast down into weakness. It is to live in the infinite and possess the finite. It is to live in God and be one with Him in His being. To become thyself is to be this, and all that flows from it. These things thou art, therefore thou canst become all this. If thou were not these things, then thou couldst never become them. What is within thee? That alone can be revealed in thy being. Thou appearest indeed to be other than this, but Wherefore shouldst thou enslave thyself to appearance? And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, rather, arise, transcend thyself, become thyself. Thou art man, and the whole nature of man is to become more than himself. He was the man animal. He has to become more than the animal man. He is the thinker, the craftsman, the seeker after beauty. He shall be more than the thinker. He shall be the seer of knowledge. He shall be more than the craftsman. He shall be the creator and master of his creation. He shall be more than the seeker of beauty, for he shall enjoy all beauty and all delight, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Next topic, the true goal. Words by our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, what happens most often when one makes the inner effort that needs to discover one's soul, to unite with it, and allow it to govern one's life, is a kind of marvelous enchantment with this discovery, as a result of which the first instinct is to tell oneself, now I have what I need. I found infinite delight and no longer to be concerned with anything else. In fact, this is what has happened to almost all those who have made this discovery, and some of them have even set up this experience as a principle of realization and said, when you have done that, everything is done. There is nothing more to do. You have reached the goal and the end of the road. Our Divine Mother says, indeed, a great courage is necessary to go further. This soul one discovers must be an intrepid warrior soul which does not at all rest, satisfied with its own inner joy while comforting itself for the unhappiness of others, with the idea that sooner or later everybody will reach that state, and that is good for others to make the same effort and that one has made, or at best that from this state of inner wisdom one can, with great benevolence and deep compassion, help others to reach that, and that when everybody has attained it, well, that will be the end of the world, and that's so much the better for those who don't like suffering. But there is a but, says our Divine Mother. There is a but. Are you sure that this was the aim and intention of the Supreme when He manifested? There's a long silence. And then our Divine Mother says, the whole creation, the whole universal manifestation appears at best like a very bad joke if it only comes to this. Why begin at all if it is only to get out of it? What is the use of having struggled so much, suffered so much of having created something which, at least in its external appearance, is so tragic and dramatic. If it is simply to teach you how to get out of it, it would have been better not to begin at all. But if one goes to the very depths of the beings, if one goes to the very depths of things, if stripped not only of all egoism, but also of the ego, one gives oneself totally, without reserve, so completely and disinterestedly that one becomes capable of understanding the plan of the Lord, then one knows that it is not a bad joke, not a tortuous path by which you return a little battered to the starting point. On the contrary, it is to teach the entire creation the delight of the being, the beauty of the being, the greatness of the being, the majesty of a sublime life, and the perpetual growth and perpetually progressive of that delight, that beauty, that greatness. Then everything has a meaning. And then no longer regrets having struggled, and then one no longer regrets having struggled and suffered. One has only the enthusiasm to realize the divine goal, and one plunges headlong into the realization with the certitude of the goal and victory. But to know that one must stop being egoistic, being a separate person, turned in on oneself and cut off from the supreme origin. That is what must be done, to cast off one's ego. Then one can know the true goal, and this is the only way. Our Divine Mother says to cast off one's ego, to let it fall off like a useless garment. The result is worth the efforts that must be made. And then one is not all alone on the way. One is helped if one has the trust. If you have had even a second's contact with the grace, if you have had even a second's contact with the divine grace, that marvelous grace which carries you along, speeds you on the path, even makes you forget that you have to hurry. If you have had only a second's contact with that, if you have had only a second's contact with that, then you can strive not to forget. And with the candor of a child, the simplicity of a child for whom there are no complications, give yourself to that grace, give yourself to that divine grace, and let it do everything. Our Divine Mother says, what is necessary is not to listen to what resists, not to believe what contradicts, to have trust, a real trust, a confidence which makes you give yourself fully without calculating, without bargaining. Trust. The trust that says, do this for me, I leave it to you. That is the best way, says our Divine Mother. Next topic, the knot of desire. Our Lord Aurobindo quotes, in the path of works, action is the knot we have to first loosen. Question, sweet mother, why is action a knot? For this, our Divine Mother says, because one is attached to action. The knot is the knot of the ego. Your act because of desire. Sri Aurobindo says this, doesn't he? The ordinary way of acting is tied to desire in one form or another. A desire, a need, so that is the knot. If you actually act only to satisfy a desire which you call a need or necessity or anything else, but in truth, if you go to the very root of the thing, you see that it is the impulse of a desire which makes you act. Well, if you act only under the effect of the impulse of the desire, you will no longer be able to act when you eliminate the desire. Our Divine Mother says, and this is the first answer people give you. When you are told, act without being attached to the result of action, have this consciousness that it is not you who are acting. It is the Divine who is acting. The reply which 99.5% give is this, but if I feel like that, I do not move any longer. I do not do anything anymore. It is always a need, a desire, a personal impulse which makes me act in one way or another. Our Divine Mother says, so Sri Aurobindo says, if you want to realize this teaching of the Divine Gita, the first thing to do is to loosen this knot, the knot binding action to desire. So firmly tied are they that if you take away one, you take away the other. He says the knot must be loosened in order to be able to remove desire and yet continue to act. And this is a fact. This is what must be done. The knot must be loosened. It is a small inner operation which you can easily perform. And when it is performed, you realize that you act absolutely without any personal motive, but moved by a force higher than your egoistic force and also more powerful. And then you act, but the consequences of the action no longer return upon you. This is a wonderful phenomenon, says our Divine Mother. This is a wonderful phenomenon of consciousness and quite concrete. In life, you do something, whatever you do, good, bad, indifferent, it does not matter. Whatever it may be, it immediately has a series of consequences. In fact, you do it to obtain a certain result. That is why you act with an eye to the result. For example, if I stretch out my hand like this to take the mic, I am looking for the result, you see, to make the sounds in the mic. And there is always a consequence, always. But if you loosen the knot and let a force coming from above or elsewhere act through you and make you do things, though there are consequences of your action, they do not come to you any longer. For it was not you who initiated the action. It was not you who initiated the action. It was the force from above. And the consequences pass above, or else they are guided, willed, directed, controlled by that divine force which made you act. And you feel absolutely free. Nothing comes back to you of the result of what you have done, says our Divine Mother.